Meeting of the school committee to order, October 19, 2020, 6 p.m. Mr. Stevens, would you lead us in a salute to the flag, please? Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. School Committee Chair report. I have nothing to report at this time. Resource Committee, Mr. Stevens.
Resource Committee met this past week, and
Does anybody else hear that breathing?
we basically went over
Nobody's
budget,
answering.
and the big thing we went over was the enrollment,
Yes, I do, Rosemary.
which is
I
down,
think it's just somebody breathing, right?
and that was basically it. And then Mr. Chalafu was going to be giving a report on budget tonight. Thank you.
Any questions from the committee? And whoever's breathing, stop breathing.
Don't try.
School building needs. Mr. Stevens.
No report.
No report. Any questions? Policy Committee, Mr. Horgan are you out there, Mr. Horgan? No. Okay.
He is not.
Excuse me.
I can say that
He called me and said he was going to try and come in virtually. He's not feeling well, so,
the policy committee had to be canceled because there wasn't a quorum. They're going to try and
Okay.
reschedule before the next school committee meeting.
okay. Any questions? Student Support Committee, Ms. LaBelle Pierce.
We don't have anything new.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none. School Personnel Committee, I have nothing to report at this time. There is no need for an executive, there's no executive committee report, and student rep, we're not doing that either. All right. No need for executive session at this time, and now we go into communications.
I've got one.
Right.
Which is very, very delighted to announce that Second Chance Animal Services will be in Fitchburg to vaccinate 75 pets on Saturday, October 24th at Sima Park, which is, I gotta get this right, 67, oh, Linda Byrne's gonna kill me, at Scott Road. So Sima Park this coming Saturday from 9 to 12. Folks will have to visit Second Chance Animal Services.org to make their reservation. We're putting it all over social media, but we're thrilled because we had 3 vaccination clinics scheduled for this year. They were all canceled. And if folks are asking, but it will happen Saturday, October 24th, 9 to 12 at the Pavilion, also known as the Ravantula. So, did I say that right, Bob?
Close enough.
Okay, close enough. But thank you.
Any questions? Seeing none, we're going to be moving now into an opportunity for me as the mayor of the city of Fitchburg to present a proclamation, and this was brought to my attention by Ms. Sally Cragen, a member of the school committee, for someone who's close to her family and also the history of the Armenian people and what they're enduring now. And I want to thank her for bringing this to our attention. I will read the proclamation at this time. I think, Mr. Glennie, were you going to be providing some photos while I speak? Nathan?
The proclamation is on the screen.
Okay,
Oh, good.
all right. I'll proceed with reading the proclamation. Whereas the city of Fitchburg, Massachusetts, and our region has long been home to a vibrant Armenian community, and whereas many are here as descendants of the 1915 Armenian genocide and the earlier massacres in the Ottoman Empire, and whereas the current Azerbaijani-Turkish aggression across the borders of Artsakh and Azerbaijan is tragically familiar, and whereas the lack of information in U.S. media about the ongoing slaughter of innocent children, families, seniors, and the bombing of churches and hospitals at Stepancourt should be known. Therefore, I, Stephen L. DiNatale, Mayor, do hereby proclaim to the Armenians in Fitchburg and our region, we salute the Armenians of Artsakh. The city of Fitchburg stands with you, and we see your sorrow. I know that we will continue to stand for peace in Artsakh, given this 19th day of October 2020. And very close to Ms. Cragen's family, Grigor Tagvorian was a gifted gymnast en route to the Olympics when he turned his talents to wrestling in his teens. He grew up in Gyumri, the second largest city in Armenia. His father, Vahe, helped Sally Cragen and her family with their house building over the past 2 years. There is, I don't see it. There was supposed to be that photo, Sally.
There are two pictures.
Is it on there? Oh, they're seeing it at home. Okay.
Good.
This group photo was taken just after Grigor and his comrades had taken down a drone. All the young men in the group photo were killed 2 weeks ago when they were surrounded in Jamail. And again, our hearts go out to you and your family for the loss of your family member. And thank you once again for bringing this to our attention, Ms. Cragen.
My goodness. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to say that Fitchburg and Massachusetts does have a very large Armenian population, and there is very little news about this. And the BBC is covering it, and there are some individuals who are covering this, but it is wholesale slaughter. There are atrocities being perpetrated. The Turks have conscripted Syrians. They are drugging them. There's all kinds of overseas coverage of what's happening. But it's truly hideous, and it hit really close to home. But I just wanted to have everyone know, I know we do have kids of Armenian descent in our schools. I meet them, pretty much every school. And I want to thank the mayor for his sensitivity, and Joan David for doing this. It's important that we all know, and I thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee? Anyone wishing to, we're moving now into the public comment section. Anyone wishing to make a public comment? Do we have anyone, Mr. Superintendent? No, we do not. Thank you. Next, Superintendent's report. Mr. Jokler.
Mr. Mayor, tonight we'll be continuing the practice that we started a couple school committee meetings ago about just a general COVID update in the city of Fitchburg using mass DPH numbers and local figures. Stephen Curry of the Board of Health is with us this evening, as well as Pam Rivers, the district nurse leader. Tonight we'll continue the school improvement plan, reporting out from our middle schools and high schools. So we'll hear a presentation from each of the principals this evening. And then lastly, we'll have Craig Shalafo provide the FY21 budget for your approval. The budget was presented to the Resource Subcommittee meeting at its most recent meeting, and looking for your support so we can continue to invest in education here in Fitchburg. So having said that, if we can get started. Steve Curry, I see you're on the line. I don't know if you can unmute here. I'll, as we've done in the past, I'll get started and we'll go from there.
Sounds good, Superintendent.
Okay, great. So before you, first slide here tonight is really just the latest map published by the Massachusetts Department of Public Health. Fitchburg and Leominster are still considered green based on the infection rate here. So if we can advance. Again, we're at a little over 1% testing positive in the last 14 days. And this is just a running tally spreadsheet. The purple line showing the number of tests taken. The green line that started out green, went yellow for one period, and then has been green since, shows the trend going back to August. And Mr. Curry, this is where I transfer the, or ask you to continue the presentation.
Thank you. However, I do not see the presentation. Am I missing something?
This is the confirmed, cumulative confirmed cases with the 3.9.
I apologize, but I don't see it on my screen. What, is it the 2-week version?
It is the cumulative cases
Okay.
title, and with the 3.9 number, Steve?
Yep. So, as Superintendent Chocolo mentioned, our incidence rate is currently at 3.9. We are borderline, we are now currently in the green, which is low risk, but we are very close, borderline to yellow, which is a little bit of a higher risk. It's more so a warning. When we see above 24 cases in a 2-week period, that would put us into the yellow. We're very, very close. So it's not time for folks to let their guard down now. We've done so good for so long. We need to continue to be vigilant, need to continue to wear masks.
And Steve, the next slide we have up is the active and daily cases. Can you see that?
Yep, I'm seeing it now.
Okay.
So, I apologize, it's not a real clear screen to me, but I believe this is the 2-week period up until last Friday, which would be October 16th, 2 weeks previous to that. The blue would show the number of cases that we received, positive cases. The red would be probable cases. And the gray line would show active cases. So we're seeing a little bit of a spike in active cases. As of today, we have 16 active cases and 1 probable case. So a little bit of a spike. And this chart sort of shows that. I believe this is the testing outcomes
Yes,
for, is it the July period or for the 2-week period?
the 2-week period.
Okay. So I believe our 2-week testing is just a hair over 1%, if I'm not mistaken. So that means that 1% of all the testing going on is testing positive in the last 2 weeks. And I believe that number is very similar from July. It's right around 1%.
And again, this next slide is really just summarizing DESE's guidance on the color classification and different models of how DPH may classify a community, red, yellow, green, and DESE's recommendation is on the right-hand side in regards to which model is recommended under the various color options.
So you see that communities that have less than total of 5 cases overall are unshaded. And then those communities that have an average of less than 4 cases per 100,000 population are in the green. And then we go from yellow, which is 4 to 8 cases per 100,000, and then in the red, which would be 8 or more cases per 100,000. And on the right explains the DESE expectation for the learning models and where you should be school committee wise as far as the metrics go. So we're still safely in the remote hybrid zone. Hopefully we remain there.
Okay, and thank you, Mr. Curry. At this point, I'd ask our district nurse leader, Pam Rivers, just to go through a quick summary of the protocols of how we handle a case.
Before
Oh.
that happens,
Yeah.
could I just ask a follow-up?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think in the previous presentations, Steve, you've been able to give us some demographics of the cases. Are you able to do that right now in terms of ages of these? You said 14 active cases or 6? How?
16.
Right, 16 active cases. And obviously, like, we keep hearing that Massachusetts is going in the wrong direction here with infections, right? So I'm just kind of curious if you have those age numbers of those people infected.
You're on mute, Mr. Curry.
Sorry about that. One of our charts, I'm sorry I don't have it in front of me, but one of our graphs does have the age groups, if it's possible to back up.
Okay, right there. It's hard to see.
Yes, it is hard to see. So it looks like the school age 5 to 18, 2 of the cases are of that age.
And I'm sorry, is this is now for the last 2 weeks, right?
That is correct.
Okay.
And to this day, it is still accurate.
Okay, thank you.
Go back to the Pam.
Yep. Good evening, everyone. So I'm here to share basically the Fitchburg Public School guidelines for potential COVID-19 cases. And it's very appropriate that I'm following Mr. Curry with the Board of Health. There's so much communication with the Board of Health, not just now with this particular situation with the COVID, but historically for years. We've always worked together. Anything that was a communicable illness in some way, we've been back and forth and completely working together within the schools and within the community. So back to this COVID. This is basically a grid showing how information comes in. Some of the information comes right to the Board of Health first, and they disseminate it through the schools. Other information comes into the schools, and we disseminate it and follow up with the Board of Health. So that's the beginning of this document. It's very much indicated and important that information remains confidential. And with that said, that it is disclosed to those that it needs to be disclosed to, and absolutely remaining confidential in cases where it just, needs to remain as such. With that said, it's written in the charts that the Director of Nursing Health Services, myself, the Superintendent, the building principals, the school nurses would be the primary individuals with the information and the follow-up. So as the information comes in, we find out about the confirmed cases, and it's connected to the school setting where we would go forward. We would look to see if in fact it is absolutely something noted within the schools or something from the community that was followed up with in the school system, and that's important to note. What would happen in the schools is that the nurses would be the individuals who would look to gather information, and that would be under the guidelines of who was within 6 feet for 15 minutes or longer. This would include looking at situations of like busing, classroom, other locations, and any follow-up on that with those guidelines. Nurses would work with their building administrators, gathering further information, and then forwarding any information to myself, the superintendent, who would indeed follow up with the Board of Health and the next steps according to that. So the Board of Health has been the individuals who have been working with the schools on the COVID all the way back into March, working with multiple school nurses. They are the ones that do the contact tracing. They are the ones that provide the information for isolation or quarantining, and then we continue to support the work. We continue, we meaning the nurses and the individuals within the schools, to supply the education and assist in making sure that people, just like Steve had said at the beginning of his presentation, remain vigilant So that includes, the hand washing, the distancing, the wearing of the masks, all of those things that we know will absolutely assist with this particular spread of disease. And then, there's other information about, the follow-up with any type of, cleaning that needs to be done. And then there is the Mass General Law that authorizes school districts to release individually identifiable information to the Board of Health relative to an impending public health emergency, anyone exposed to communicable disease or reported disease or condition of public health importance. And this is important to note that obviously it's very relevant right now to what we're talking about, but it's something that's been in place and we've been doing for years with multiple other communicable spreads. I also want to share the different ways in which we, as a district, through the health services, are able to help combat this. So we have the the Comprehensive School Health Services Grant that supports the health within the schools and works with the community. So some of the things that supplies are actually the supplies we've needed. So the PPE also works with the safety needs. There's supports in that. That's our BRIGHT program. Those are our SHINE programs that focus on the social emotional needs. And we work with UMass in the other chronic health conditions and gain support in collaboration that way. Other collaboration, which is very new this year and very exciting, we're working with the Hazel Health, and that is a telehealth program. They reached out and approached us. We worked with over the summer to put things in place. And the pilot program, after the kickoff last week, will begin at the Crocker School, the Longjoe School, and the Rheingold School. This is an offering for students and families to have communication in real time with nurse practitioners, physicians, physician assistants. The principals and nurses will support this and work together with this. And it's something that we can have access for families, not only within the schools, but also within their homes. So, and just to note, the Hazel Health has been around this country for several years, but we are the first district in Massachusetts to participate with them in this, and it's very exciting. The other ongoing and new, and part of related to this the COVID, is the different regulations. So that we've had, as a result of that, we've followed the regulations, we've followed the guidelines, we've developed policies, protocols. One of the new requirements that's out there is the flu vaccination, and that is for all children in effort to increase their health and safety. And it's an expectation within to have that is one of the immunizations that we record in the schools. So that's ongoing. There's multiple supports with the hand washing, hand sanitizers, what those look like, face masks. We've worked within the schools with our health offices and our isolation medical rooms for safety. We've looked to provide certain other needs, including hydration, working with building maintenance for the air purifiers, ventilation, all in the effort to have the safest location for our students and the families. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Pam. Any questions of Pam?
Just one question. Pam, this is Sally.
Hi, Sally.
Hi. That telehealth sounds really exciting. How are we letting parents know about this opportunity? Because are we doing emails? Are we doing Connected? Social media?
So actually, Sally, all of the above. When we
Great.
worked with them and talked to them, they're very much wanting to do multiple means of communication. So they're working with the principals to get information out, and they're also sending out links in English and Spanish so that parents can get information and sign up.
Thank you.
Sure?
Hi, Pam, this is Jean. I have a question.
Hi, Jean.
Hi.
Sure.
I don't know if this data is available right now, but we've had kids in buildings now, right? And have had students bused, part of the protocols are that if there's any screening on the buses or when kids come to school, that maybe kids have fevers or, like, do we have data on how many kids have come to school with fevers, or are we collecting, like, I'm sure you guys collect that information, but I don't mean to put you on the spot, I'm just curious, like, basically, I guess I'm asking, as we've rolled out the beginning of school for some cohorts, what are we seeing in terms of sickness?
Yep, that's a fair question. So it's actually been wonderful. First of all, students and staff have been very happy coming back. The nurses have seen some students in their health rooms with, some symptoms. They've reached out to the families. There's been a very quick turnaround as far as the students being picked up, followed by their physicians, which is the next, step that they would need to do, and then recommendations accordingly. Honestly, I've not heard about fevers from nurses, and when talking to some of the nurses today, they were actually telling me that they really don't see students much at all, that the students primarily are healthy and they're attending their classes.
So nobody's had to use, like, what do they call the room, like a COVID special room or anything like that?
Yeah, the isolation medical room, yeah. So it's been used minimally, but a lot of times what's happened is we're able to get a hold of the families, and they're able to come within a very quick period of time, and as a result, the isolation room has not really been needed for any extended period of time.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, any other questions for Pam? Okay, I think just, again, before we move on, staff and students, whether in the schools, home, out and about, just the three biggest things that we can all do to limit the spread of the virus is wash our hands, wear masks, and socially distance from each other by 6 feet. So this is not just effective for the COVID virus, but also the influenza virus as well. Our nursing staff has said if people follow, these safety recommendations, that the flu season should be less severe because everyone is masked up. So keep our fingers crossed, and let's keep doing these three things. Let's focus on what we can control, and we'll have to deal with what we can't. So before we get started with the school...
I'm sorry, I do have another question to follow up. In terms of, this is not a Fitchburg specific question, so I'm just curious, like, from your connections in the state, like, and what you know about this. So there have been, I read an article, there have been hundreds of people who are at schools who have tested positive for COVID, but from what I read, it doesn't sound like it's school-related, spread.
Yep.
Right, but how are people in the state even measuring that? And do you feel like superintendents have an understanding of how the data is being compiled?
I can't answer the first part of the question, Jean. I don't know how the state is compiling the data. I can tell you, maybe just as a general update, we were, all the superintendents have weekly calls with the commissioner, and in his last update, he talked about, in general, what they've seen in schools is that the infections are not happening at schools. He mentioned an example where the increases that they're seeing at hospitals, actually that increase is happening as a result of medical staff taking down their guard in the break rooms and eating lunch. So that's one example he shared. I can tell you that the state is working on providing a testing, some testing capabilities that's in the works. And I think we're going to receive more information on that hopefully this week. because even though there is testing, or there will be testing available, they haven't come up with a process yet of who would be eligible for that testing in each district, because I think they want to be uniform. The other thing that the state is looking into, given the research that they've seen over the last several months, is they may be revisiting the busing protocols. So we may be receiving some updated guidance from DESE this week or next there. That's really all I can tell you in terms of what I'm aware of, and other than, just seeing what was, reported today in like the New York Times, New York City public schools has an extremely low infection rate of, transmission rate. And the adults who are getting it there are, they're finding it's happening from outside the schools.
Right.
And that the students themselves, especially the younger ones, aren't the carriers, based on the research that's available now. That's all
I will just say it is disappointing to me that the state, in all of its number crunching and drive for data, doesn't require schools to report this.
So schools are required to report student cases, and when we have a student who does test positive, schools are required to inform. There's a DESE hotline, so they ask a few questions, and the principal makes that call. And they ask a few questions and say thank you for the information.
And do they make that information available to regular people, like per school district?
That I don't know.
Okay.
That I don't know if that information has been, again, the only other reference point, again, this is just from what's been in the press, and the Boston Globe had a story, well, I'll say within the last month, that there are a few districts, and I think might have been Haverhill, had the largest, at one point, number of cases at one time. That was 10, and they didn't close. I don't think they have closed down a school or their district. So I think school districts are, now that there's more knowledge available and the contact tracing that's happening, and that's handled by the Board of Health. So just to be clear, the school principals or nurses, while they might take some preliminary information, that
Right.
contact tracing is handled by Steve Curry or Dottie McNamara. So again, fortunately, we're only now starting to have students return, last couple of weeks ago for the sub-separate classrooms, and in a couple more weeks, we start the hybrid. So I guess as we're discovering in this whole situation, we're learning as we're going. But to my knowledge, there is no state database by community. There may be, I'm just.
Yeah, I
don't
haven't
know,
seen
yeah,
that either, so,
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, so at the last school committee meeting, I mentioned just a tool that we have now begun using across the district to improve our communications with our non-English language community, our English language learners, their parents, their families. And it's a product called Lionbridge, and that product has been made available to us by, I guess, support from DESE. So we have some preliminary data to show the number of calls or number of times that service has been utilized, and which languages. So the number one calls in language is Spanish, 282 calls, comprising of 2,549 minutes. The next largest number of calls was in Creole, 17 calls at 131 minutes. Third was Portuguese, 14 calls, 99 minutes. And in fourth was Mandarin, 10 calls at 35 minutes. So this is really, the first, although the time period that this report covers is from September 1, but it's really from the start of school. And I wouldn't be surprised that when we present next time this data, it should be, I would say, at least double this as more teachers begin using this and become more comfortable with the tool itself. So this is really a great tool to help us communicate with our families, during this time period.
How does it actually work? Is it an individual teacher logging into this
You call
program,
into-
making the phone call?
Yeah, if the previous slide, you call into, and you get a code, and you enter a PIN number, and then you select the language, and then you connect with the language interpreter.
So you could, as a teacher, I could call at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock, or whatever, when I want to update a family about grades. And that's awesome.
Yep. Again, this is helping us remove a barrier to communicate with our families. So this has been made available to Fitchburg, and I don't know how many other communities in the Commonwealth, but we were one of the ones that was selected. They informed us at the end of August, and we put it into use immediately after some initial training. So Eva Kelly has been working closely with this to roll it out, and again, I'll be providing periodic updates as we get more information, so we can, start tracking the trend here. So this is great.
I don't mean to be annoying. I'm sorry. I'm asking another thing, but so when, as a teacher, when you have your, is it on X, you guys have X2, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is it on X2 where it says family doesn't speak? Okay, so the teacher would
See that?
see that. Okay, all right. Thank you.
Bob, how long are the calls on average?
Well,
Do you have a sense? I mean, we could
yeah, I guess,
provide-
we could just do the simple math, number of calls, minutes. Looks like 9, 10, anywhere from, I guess, 2 minutes. One call in Lao was 2 minutes, and then you can see in French there was one for 11 minutes. So, I think it all, varies. You can, simple math in Spanish at 282 calls at 2,549 minutes. That's a little bit less than 10 minutes a call.
Right.
So that's a conversation. So. Okay. And I think, other than this, we're ready to begin the school improvement plan presentation. And first up is Brittany Lavoie, Memorial Middle School. And I see her at the bottom of my screen to the right. So unmute yourself, and the floor is yours.
All right, ready to go. This is just a review of the district goals and theory of action, and you'll be able to see through lines to Memorial's plan for the 2021 school year as we go through. I do know that other schools have presented this as well as Bob, so I know that you are familiar. If you go to the next slide, here is just a breakdown of our students and our population. We are about 51%, we have Hispanic students, and then 30% white students, 6.1 Asian students, 5.3 African American, and 7.5% multi-race non-Hispanic. So as we go through this slide, I'll try to be concise, but we are in our second year of the school redesign grant. So we were recipients last year, which means that our school improvement process is a little bit more dense and in depth in order to apply for the nearly $1 million grant distribution over the next 3 years from the Department of Ed. One of the focus areas of our school redesign grant application last year was to improve attendance. And as you'll see here, our goal was exceeded by almost 200%. So our 8% of our students were marked chronically absent as opposed to past numbers in the 20s. So we had an absolute banner year before going into the shutdown in March. Tied to Fitchburg Public Schools' mission and vision, our mission and vision is also to remove barriers and to focus on the growth and development of every single student at the individual and collective level, as well as our faculty. We spent the bulk of year one really developing the capacity of our teachers and building a collaborative culture and climate amongst them to really leverage the strength that we already have in the building and to bring in more knowing others and training in areas that we needed support in. Another highlight from last year's performance indicators was our access growth for our English language learners. 48% of students made progress towards English language proficiency, and we were able to graduate or transition to formal limited English proficiency, 19 students this year, which was a record number. Last year, excuse me. So going into the 1920, or reviewing the 1920 year was pivotal in creating a strategic plan for the 2021 school year. This past year, we really tried to empower all members of our community, faculty, students, and families to present problems of practice as the foundation of our school redesign and barriers to optimizing student learning. And through the grant, we were able to dedicate task forces to these projects ongoingly and simultaneously. So we made an incredible amount of progress in an incredible amount of areas in a short period of time. The theme of this school, so there are 4 school improvement practices that are part of the school redesign initiative, and this is the first, distributive leadership. So we were able to create a number of committees. 2 are specifically integral to our success. They are the distributed leadership team, and they handle a lot of the technical problem solving for day-to-day operations in the building. They're handling a lot of our remote learning contextual challenges and changes. And then we also have the instructional leadership team that focus more primarily on the instructional and academic initiatives within the building. The creation of these 2 teams and then the subcommittees underneath them spanned more than 70% of our faculty last year, which means that over 70% of our faculty had an active role in giving their feedback and their proposals for our school improvement. Let's see. So our school improvement practice 2 is high quality instruction. Our instructional leadership team put into place a number of strategies for improving student learning. One is we redesigned the schedule to provide time. Specifically, it's a WIN block, which stands for what I need, formerly known as academic support, where students' learning gaps and students' need for learning extensions are addressed. And what that does is it protects the core learning blocks to be able to be dedicated to grade level academic learning while simultaneously extending or filling the gaps for students at a different time throughout the schedule. This was largely successful in that our goal for our MCAS accountability data was for 18% of our students to meet their growth goals. And we were on target before we went remote with 43% of our students on target to meet those goals. So a lot of this work is the continuation of some of the progress we made last year. So this practice is ensuring that every student is making progress. We have intentional and strategic plans for attendance, student engagement, students with learning gaps, students who need enrichment, our English language learners, which we addressed in some previous slides. They're all addressed within this multi-tiered systems of support that we have put into place. And this is both academic and social emotional. So a highlight in this area is through our attendance that our goal was to decrease chronic absenteeism by 5%. with an end result of 17.5%, but we were able to bring chronic absenteeism down to 8% last year. And that in addition to our English language learners gains on access, and we'll also talk about some of the other effects of these strategies on student engagement and time on learning in the next slide. But it is important to note that we are able to expand this system of support this year to offer even further interventions to students during that win time to address even more specific student learning needs. We probably dedicated the majority of our planning to the first turnaround in school improvement practice, which was distributing the leadership so we could make as much ground as we could by bringing on as many people as we could into the process, and as well as really focusing on our culture and climate, starting with the grown-ups and moving into the kids. Our teachers identified that there was expertise in the building that was untapped, and we really focused on for teachers by teachers PD. And we began this process with teachers identifying problems or challenges of practice that they were having in the classroom. And then we brought experts, their peers who were experiencing some success in these areas, to offer trainings that we've recorded and compiled in a digital library for teachers to continually review. And that was hugely successful in a practice that we're continuing and expanding this year. We introduced a behavior management sort of system within the school that just took the mystery out of schools' expectations, and the results were, the returns were huge. So our first quarter alone, office referrals were reduced by 150%, and our overall suspensions for the year, even leading up to COVID in remote learning, decreased by 40%. So we've expanded that system this year. We've also adapted it for remote learning, so kids get an element of consistency there, and we're experiencing the same positive results even during remote learning. And that is noted by our attendance rates. Even recently with remote learning through October and September, we've had an average of 96% attendance daily. It's been as high as a little over 98. Our lowest day has been 94, which is still higher than the best rates 2 years ago. So we're continuing to see a return on our investment there.
That's great.
Okay, before we move on to Longstreet, any questions of Principal Lavoie?
Just congratulations, great numbers.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I agree. That was
Yeah,
good.
I mean, the real focus now is to just keep the momentum with the changing context.
How are you keeping the momentum with the teachers and professional development?
Yeah, it's been a balance. So usually we would be pushing a lot harder with our professional development, but we have a remote learning committee that works with faculty to sort of take the temperature of what people need versus what we think they need.
That's
and I
great.
think that really listening to what the faculty needs to be successful right now and what the students and families need, I think has been the most pivotal component in balancing, the stress management versus, being results focused.
Thanks. That's great.
Hi, Brittany. This is Sally. It seems like months and months since we've seen each other. My daughter attends. Hi, my daughter attends Memorial, so I feel like I have more than skin in the game here. Could you talk just a bit more in depth about the Teachers for Teachers, for Teachers by Teachers PD? I'm really intrigued about that process. And you say that you're filming these vignettes so people can view them. Are they like live in classroom, or are they demonstrations? Just a little bit more.
Yeah, so we started this process when remote learning began on a more emergency basis in the spring, and faculty were trying to very quickly learn as much as they could about all of the different platforms they could use to maximize student learning. And what we found was, the things that I know about, I could help with, and the things that I didn't, I had to do some research. And what we found was we had a ton of experts in the building on these different elements. And what they did was they started offering Zoom meetings for their colleagues where people felt comfortable being a little bit more vulnerable and learning something new and difficult. And then the presenters agreed to record them on Zoom and put them in a library. So if teachers had a scheduling conflict, they could still access the training done by their peers. And so if people realize that they have a need for some sort of training as they go or in their progression of learning all these new platforms, they can still go back and reference.
Actually, Brittany and one of her teachers actually recorded a training for the district on smart classroom management. So part of what she's done at Memorial is starting to spread throughout Fitchburg Public Schools.
That's really exciting, and I understand confidentiality would be an issue, but I would be very curious to see some of the trainings, just what are our teachers seeing? I don't know how we'd make that happen, but...
Yeah, so the good news is that what gets recorded is just the presenter who's agreed. So happy to share.
Okay, thank you.
I could just tell you, I think generally speaking, there's just been a revolution in the teaching profession. And I think the one thing that this has forced people to do is share. And share in a big way, putting it on your platforms and having libraries that you can go to if you don't know how to use Padlet or you don't know how to use Jamboard, and it has personally, I think, and it sounds like that's what's happening here too. It's really a revolution.
Yeah, there's no more waiting for next year's PD days to roll around, and Superintendent Jokela is really focused on removing barriers and having people to be able to access this stuff on demand. Our tech department put out a library as well that's really been pivotal.
Well, I think Brittany, just one thing I know you're working on too is in one of your first goals was building the instructional leadership team too. And you've had, I guess a few different people. You have people coming and going over the last couple of years, but I guess maybe if you can just talk about how you've been able to, bring on the new additions quickly and assimilate them into the goals of the school.
Yeah, one of our focuses was to go through every faculty member and identify some key strengths and see how we could leverage them. While simultaneously building all of our capacity at the same time. So being continuous learners is becoming part of the culture, but we've really just tried to shine the light on our, we just have brilliant faculty that have so much to offer. So rather than, having to look at the administration or just the coaches, there is this sense of, leadership and a knowledge base that can be found in all of our faculty members. And our ILT is bigger than most, but it's by design. We have about 15 people it's a really diverse group across contents and grade levels. And they've all taken on an individual, but really impactful role to move a piece of the puzzle forward.
Okay. Thank you, Brittany. We'll talk soon. And next up on deck is Principal of Longsjo Middle School, Shige Tanaka. So Shige, are you online?
Yep, thank you.
Okay.
I really wish I could go after, before Brittany. She set a very high expectation, so I appreciate that. But she goes above and beyond. So I'm Shige Tanaka, Principal of Longsjo Middle School. Thank you for having me tonight to present our data. First off, our goal aligned to district goal as well as presented. As of last week, we have 670 students enrolled in our school. 58.8% Latinos, increased from 5.5 percentage points from last year. White population is 30.4, increased from 6 percentage points from last year. Black/African American and Asian population decreased about 1.5 percentage points and 0.4 percentage points respectively. And non-Hispanic multi-race was about the same. So attendance went up more than 2 percentage points from the previous school year. This is really, really great because our daily goal is 95%. And a lot of different factors affect this number. We see advisory is very, very important and the foundation of social emotional work. Teachers, our staff are doing really, really great job doing circle of power and respect. We call it CPR. It's the morning circle to try to create emotionally safe environment and a place to go. And also we implemented restorative practice from shifting from traditional consequence-based practice for discipline that also affects our positive results. And last year, 23% of our students made progress compared to 21% 2 years ago. And it is important to note that the number of English learners increased significantly in 2018-2019 school year, 60.9% in 2017-2018 school year, went up to 8.5 following year, and currently we have 9.6% of our students are English learners. That increased 2.7 percentage point in 2 years. So let's say we have 650 students and we are talking about 14, 15 students increased. So we now have 3 ESL teachers to meet their celebrations and focus. We look at 2 aspects, social, emotional, and academic piece. As I said, staff received a series of training for restorative practice. We had the luxury of extended learning time last year, so we used that a lot to Mrs. Fisher run restorative practice piece, and Ms. Rice and I led the mindfulness piece of it, so that we can give them a tool for self-awareness and self-managing emotions. And then we also renamed in-school suspension room to restorative learning center, so that we can see all the unproductive behaviors in the classroom to the learning opportunities for students and families and teachers to learn from the mistakes and prevent that from happening, restoring damage and everything. And we also had a training about the calming corners in each classroom. So before we shut down, we had a training to all teachers so that they can have a calming corner in their classroom. That's the place for students to reflect themselves. They fill out the form and reflect their actions and emotions, and then give them chance to gather them together before they sent out to the outside of the classroom. Academic piece, rigor and academic discourse are the 2 big pillars. We want to we define what the rigorous tasks are, because that is widely used in very different ways. So we define that, and we communicated to students explicitly and implicitly that they can. We challenge them with the rigorous tasks so that they can achieve higher. Content team meetings and trainings are designed around them, so that the teachers will have a tool and equipped to with the belief, strong belief that all students can achieve. And also instructional leadership team planned peer visits, so teachers visit to other teachers' room to learn from each other and try to create the professional learning community and to drive instruction right before the shutdown happened. So that was a very, we really wanted to happen. And also we see student voice and family voice is very important. So at the end of the school year, we sent out the surveys to families and students, and about 200 students filled out the survey. I really wish that we could have 600, but it was very difficult in the spring remote setting, and that we have about 100 families responded to that. We identified these 3 areas: college-going culture, meaningful and valuable learning, and social emotional safety in school. We identified these 3 areas to tackle this year. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. I had 1 more slide, maybe 2 more slides. So the SMART goals. So 83% or more Longshore students will at least partially meet grade level expectations in MCAS, ELA, and math. Currently, last 3 years average is 78%, so we are hoping to get 5 percentage points increase. 40% of or more Longshore students with disabilities will at least partially meet grade level expectations in also MCAS, ELA, and math. Currently 30%, and also English learners, it's 50% or more. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any questions for Principal Tanaka? Okay. Seeing none, thank you, Shige. We're going to move on to Fitchburg High School and Principal Jeremy Roach. So Jeremy, keep us going here.
Okay, thank you, Fitchburg School Committee. Glad to touch base on a number of the initiatives that we have going on at the school, in addition to some progress points that we've been able to look at over the recent year or so, or 6-7 months for sure. You can see a few photos there of, we did have a very unique graduating class of 2020. The situation of our graduation was as good as it could be, and it actually, I thought, was a great day. But you can see some photos there from the class, in addition to from our Hispanic Heritage Car Parade from about a week ago. So, you know, trying to be present, positive, prepared. It's the mission. We talk about it all the time, because it really is those habits that I think lead to, we think really will lead to success for students beyond high school. So, yeah, we can move forward in the presentation here. So we're incorporating the district goals and theories of action as well. Interestingly enough, we're working with the same consultant, Carrie Purcell. I'll mention her a little bit further into the presentation with the work that we're doing to develop a school-wide instructional focus statement. But it's very similar to what you see here in terms of making sure that, you know, every student and every faculty member is involved, and really our next steps are including the students and families, you know, to get some feedback on it and really make it something like present, positive, and prepared, so it's known and embraced by all, and we can really measure growth moving forward. Much like the other schools, you know, you can see the demographic data breakdown. I think, you know, what's interesting for us, you know, when I started in Fitchburg High School in 2011, is how much, you know, the demographic summary has changed. And it's fascinating. And to me, it's just a reflection of the dynamic nature of the community of Fitchburg, the embrace that Fitchburg has always had for differences, diversity, and I think these pie charts just demonstrate that. So you can see ours certainly as the breakdown of the numbers there, but again, similar to what Longshore Memorial showed. But again, I think what's really fascinating is just in 10 years how much Fitchburg High School has changed in ways. And I think change in this case, again, is just a demonstration of what Fitchburg has always been about. Yeah, one of the things, present, positive, prepared is certainly, as noted, such an important part of what we've talked about at Fitchburg High. And we're super excited and proud about a lot of the progress that's been made. And you can see the red line of, the attendance rate improvements that we've had up to, March 13th there, where we were about 94% or thereabouts school-wide, which seemed implausible, quite honestly, a few years back to 2011. And certainly the chronic absenteeism rate, declining tremendously. And again, I'll just give an example because I thought it was interesting. I started in 2011, the average attendance rate was 88%. So to be at 94% means, it doesn't seem like a huge differential, but it's about 75 more kids coming to school every day, when you have almost 1,300 students. So, that's a huge improvement. And, I can say back then the chronic absenteeism rate, how many kids had 18 absences or more was 40%. So when you see the average number of days absent below, I think it's like 8 point something there. We had years where that was 16, 17. So again, we've made a lot of progress. It's taken time, and again, emphasizing what's important, and that's being present, it's being positive, and being prepared is really, I think resonated with our Fitchburg High community for sure. That's the staff and the students and families. So as I noted, we're working with Carrie Purcell from Focus Schools, and it's kind of a different approach to the typical school improvement plan because it's really, I think, allowing us to center our work that we've started and we've been progressing in instructional areas in assessment, but really incorporating that so that, one thing that's tough in a high school sometimes is you have these sort of different tiers. You have the freshman classes and you might be in teaching teams, but then you have seniors who are taking very individualized courses, and they're all over the place, from advanced placement to dual enrollment to manufacturing to different things. So to get everybody involved can be challenging sometimes when you develop a goal, but she's helped us a lot with that. And I think we're at a pretty good place with respect to the draft statement that we have, where all members of Fitchburg High will be present, positive, and prepared in order to think and communicate critically and effectively. And we've developed a SMART, and the lowercase e would represent every student, a SMART E goal. So it's strategic, measurable. It's something that we're all accountable. It's reasonable. Like, we can definitely achieve this with hard and collaborative effort. And it's time, so it's going to be over the course of the year or a quarter or a semester or something like that. But again, I think what sometimes high schools will miss out on, and we're guilty of this too, is every student. It might be 9th and 10th grade, but you don't really get too much going with juniors and seniors, or it might be English and math, but not necessarily some of the other subject areas. So I'm excited about this. The staff have worked really hard on it. We're developing a lesson that we're going to have all students do that will give us their feedback on it and give us their ideas about how we can make it something that really is pervasive around the school, so that everywhere you go, this is our school-wide instructional focus. This is what it means. This is what it means for me. Because again, I think when we've done that with present, positive, and prepared, really the habits of mind work, as we get to instruction and thinking and writing, I think, in communicating rather, that's our next steps. And again, we've made some really good progress. So these are some data points that, the high schools have some different ones that do get calculated. So last year we did have some specific data points that, would be part of this particular school year. And the first one would be a graduation rate. And, we were really excited by the fact that, we had set a goal many years ago of reaching 90%. And at the time that seemed unlikely when we were in the 70s and that type of thing. But now that we actually did achieve it for the first time, we want to keep growing from there. But again, that I shouldn't shrift that, because that's the efforts of our kids and our teachers, our amazing administrative assistant principals, guidance counselors, really everybody, coaches. It's a collective effort, and if parents didn't support what we do, we'd have a hard time with that as well. And then the other one is dropout rate, and again, 0.7%, seemed really difficult to do, and something that, again, I think our staff and our students and families deserve a lot of credit for, because, it's one of the lowest, if not the lowest, of all urban high schools in the state. Graduation rate at 90% is very rare for urban high schools as well. So we were super excited about that. But again, it's taken a lot of time, and now we just continue to improve on. One other area too is, Esl Progress, and we didn't have the same sort of points to start from that you heard from the middle schools. They did some amazing work there, but definitely we're proud of what we've done. And now that we have an ESL team, again, I think back to, having one ESL teacher in school to now having truly a team, a team approach with guidance, with administration, with support from central office. That took us a long time to get to that point. And now we're starting to see some of the results. And you can see a few of the other things there with attendance and advanced coursework. We've done very well there. There's some more information as we progress. So we were able to capture some progress data with respect to the learning over the course of the year, and we were very excited about what we saw with the standards assessments with the English students in grades 9 and 10, and we use Common. The assessment tool is there. It's a particular program that includes curriculum and materials, but does give us a nice assessment series so that we can see where are our kids right now and what do we need to do to address it. So you can see we had amazing growth in 10th grade. And then with 9th grade, I think what's clear, and I think one of the key points to note there, some folks have worked really hard in the English department, the ESL department, together with Jen Scott and Tanya Jarrett and some of our other folks here to change the canon. So to choose books that are reflective of our population, and you saw that a little bit earlier. And certainly they felt really excited about that. And I think with the 9th grade analysis, we really front-loaded a lot on the writing, which our analysis for why we didn't see the progress in reading was, the second half of the year was really focusing on that. But I think in addition, we've updated the canon there as well, so that I think some of the text will be a little bit more reflective of where we are as a school, where we are as a society, and hopefully with all things reading, we want to make sure the kids are interested in it and engaged by it. So we're really anticipating that. I think the next slide is math. So math, again, we were super excited with what we saw. We use iReady for our assessments there. We do fall, winter, and spring. Of course, we didn't get to the spring one. But what we saw in the winter was some really strong progress with our freshman team. You can see some of the information there was, about kind of how our students do Algebra 1, generally speaking. There are some students in the Honors Academy who also take geometry. But that class really did a great job, and we were really strong with them being at grade level for the standards, for 9th grade for the Common Core math. For 10th grade, we were trying to find the magic sauce, so to speak. However, there was real growth and improvement. It has been a grade level, where our data that you see there it doesn't look great, but overall, I think we made some gains, and the class did show improvement, and we were really confident. Even I remember our last planning meeting for MCAS, because we closed, a couple weeks prior to the English one, and then math coming up a little bit later. But the coaches were super excited about it because they felt like there was real progress, there was real growth, and again, I think with our 2023 students who will be taking the MCAS this year, at least as of now, we feel pretty confident in how they're going to do, in addition to the 2023 class. So again, a quick summary on some of the positives that I mentioned, a number of those there. couple that I'll highlight. You know, we were really excited to have an approved Innovation Career Pathway vocational program last year. It's the first one of its kind at Fitchburg High, and it's in advanced manufacturing. We're really looking forward to that launch. We have a lot of new equipment, and it's being installed now and or already installed. And you know, we're hoping to make some real progress with the 4 manufacturing partners that we have that are companies right here in the area. 3 of them right here in Fitchburg, and they're looking to hire kids. You know, so and it's a real job. It's a living wage job. It's a job that, you know, provides sort of the backbone of the community in a lot of ways. So we're thrilled with that, in addition to our growth with our early college, high school dual enrollment program. We're launching the Educator Pathway this year because we want to build the future teachers for the Fitchburg public school system right in Fitchburg. And we want them to represent the pie chart you saw at the beginning of the presentation as well. So we have 170 students, 170 dual enrollment courses, or I should say enrollments happening this year. So that's 170 different college classes that students are taking right now while they're at Fitchburg High. They're either Mount Wachusett or Fitchburg State college credits, and many of those are transferable to wherever the student chooses to go. Again, the access scores are great. You can see that, but the AP results was something we were really excited about because, you know, AP was the advanced placement test last year was such a cloud of confusion and how that was going to go. I think the College Board did a really great job. And our students and teachers did an amazing job. We had 178 passing scores. So that's the equivalent of passing a college class. It is accepted at more than 92% of all colleges and universities in the United States. So that's a huge increase from the next highest year in the history of the school. Again, going back to 2011, we had 23 qualifying scores that year. So we've increased quite a bit. And the fascinating thing is that the nationally AP results are down 7%. So our kids and teachers bucked the trend. They did an unbelievable job, and we're very proud of them. Challenges, I mean, as we're talking about things now, you know, we just in the remote and then soon to be hybrid format, we are concerned about achievement gaps widening within the school. We want to make sure that, you know, that doesn't happen. The social emotional health of our kids, our faculty, our community is certainly a big one. You know, balancing the remote and hybrid teaching expectations. It's a really challenging job. I think teachers are working, you know, amazingly hard. And of course, we worry about them and we worry about our kids in this whole process. You know, we're looking at MCAS results. Certainly our goal is 500 plus for English and math, but, you know, we need a little bit more direction on that just for the process. And I think that's coming. But again, we have a number of other factors there that we stay focused on with our performance, and chronic absenteeism has to be a focus here. Interestingly enough, we've had really strong attendance, and we weren't sure what to expect in the remote environment, but kids are coming, and that's a good thing. And then we do have an accreditation visit in March to May. Again, we haven't set the date yet. It's supposed to be just now. We would have been just wrapping it up, but it's been delayed, obviously. So more to come on with that. But that's a once in every 10-year process. So it's a very important piece. I think we're getting towards just a couple more slides. Yeah, so we have again, this is sort of a summary of a number of the targets that we would have. You know, the school-wide instructional focus, as I talked about, you know, the English and math and science MCAS results, we have set a target of 500 plus. That puts our students in a very strong position if they're able to achieve a 500 or higher. It's similar to proficient, you know, in the former exam. You know, we want to increase to 20+% in terms of the access performance measures to lead to student proficiency, or at least increase in their levels. Again, continue to focus on the habits of mind, keep those graduation dropout rates exceeding the state targets. And our goal is that, you know, we've always wanted to hit 200 qualifying scores for advanced placement And as you saw last year, we're getting closer, and we've grown quite a bit, as I said. And then the final slide just puts it in a different format, with some of the goals that we have here at Fitchburg High. So thank you for allowing me to present, and certainly glad to take any questions.
Hi, Jeremy, it's Jean.
Hey, Jean.
So there's a lot of great data there, and congratulations on all of those improvements. So my question is maybe going back to the reading, and as you have been examining the curriculum, and you talked about having more high interest choices for students, I know that the focus for the last few years has been on informational texts, and
Sure.
I think in terms of what I've seen come through, so tiny size sample, is a lot of informational text. But I haven't seen a lot of novels that kids are reading. I mean, some, but I'm curious if that's something, if that's not the way you see it, or if you, also, I guess I'm curious if now in remote, because it's harder to get novels or access to them, is that something that you guys see?
Well, it's, I think so. To address that question, Jean, you're right. We have to balance, the literature, and certainly classics are important, and you need to study various formats, plays like The Crucible and other novels like Of Mice and Men are certainly staples. Historical novels like Night are definitely going to have a place at Fitchburg High. But, we've looked at novels like In the Time of the Butterflies, which addresses Dominican history, to There, which really gets into, indigenous peoples. Tommy Orange wrote that. And these are several that we've incorporated into, the canon here at Fitchburg High. But to your point, there is a strong balance of informational text. And I think, Common Lit is a tremendous resource. And we're very appreciative of, the school system supporting that, because it's an amazing tool for our English teachers, for our ESL teachers, even, our social studies teachers can access it. And they do a lot with DBQs, which I'm sure you're familiar, document-based questions, very straightforward informational texts, usually multiple, that, you use to try to draw some kind of conclusion, analysis, inference, that type of thing. So, yeah, I think we have great people who talk about this constantly. And when they come to me with it, they already have a plan. They already have studied it. They've already researched Sora, for example. I was using it over the weekend. We have access to that database now, which allows for online e-readers right in the Chromebook. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, that's a great one.
I watched, it's tremendous. And I watched The Loom that the librarian put together this weekend, and immediately downloaded a book about Yellowstone because I want to go to Yellowstone next summer. Yeah. And it was unreal how many texts were there. I put a hold on How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibram Zendi because I've been wanting to read that, and it says I'll have it in a couple of weeks. So all our kids, all our teachers have access to that. And again, that is those kind of tools. I think, like you noted, we have to adjust a little bit from the direct paper copy to tools like Sora, tools like Common Lit that, are rich with, really in many ways, more resources than we would have had with just simple, paper novels.
Do you think we could request Dr. Corcoran to come in at some point and kind of maybe toward the spring, just to look at some of the data through Sora and see how much kids were reading? Because I think that faculty definitely love Sora. And I'm just, in my own experience, it's a struggle to make sure that kids love Sora.
Yeah, sure.
So I'd just be curious.
I think that's that's an excellent idea, and I'll definitely talk to her about, that, and or if not presenting, even just collecting some data, and then some information about it. And again, I know it's relatively new to us, so it's an initiative where we're just kind of kicking off with our kids. So that would be, I think, really, valuable to see.
Thanks for a great report.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions of Jeremy?
Thank you so much. That it's so many, so many things to celebrate, and so many more kids in school. So many more kids in school. I know my son is looking forward to returning whenever that, when we return, but
Sure.
yeah, but I'm amazed at his diligence and adaptation, and I feel the same about some of the few other kids high school kids that I'm in touch with. So just kudos to the staff and teachers. That's great.
I don't mean to add another thing, but the rigor is it's rigorous. There was a great assignment from history over the past week and a half of this analytical essay, research paper, basically, on Bacon's Rebellion. And I mean, the original research that kids were doing and the connections that they were making, in fact, to Ibram Kendi's work, is just, it was really, oh God, I loved it. For every part that my daughter felt tortured by it, I loved it.
Yeah. It's okay that you feel that way, Gene.
So she was feeling the productive struggle, is what you're saying.
That's right.
I love the productive struggle.
Yeah, I have to add too. I mean, I think, as you said, Sally, we've also reaped the benefits here of the efforts of the elementaries and the middle schools focusing strongly on the present prepared positive. It may be called something else, but, really, having students come in ready for the expectations of being in school and being present and being able to pick that up, so to speak, really does. We're very appreciative of the efforts of our colleague schools within the district, and because it wouldn't be as seamless, I guess. It's not easy, but it wouldn't be as seamless if it wasn't the case. So I just wanted to add that.
So I guess before we move on to the budget presentation, I just want to thank all the principals tonight and for 2 weeks ago for presenting. And
Goodrich presenting?
Alexis Curry can't make it tonight. We'll have her come the first meeting in November. So all our schools made tremendous progress last year. Unfortunately, we were probably one of the few districts in the state that last year would have been excited to take MCAS so we could get the formal scoring, so to speak, from the state. I think that we would have had at least a couple schools move out of the under 10 percentile category. Clearly, as you heard tonight, Fitchburg High School, record high school graduation, record low dropouts. Again, at Memorial, and at Longstow, and all our schools that you heard 2 weeks ago, the improvement in the access results, the reduction in chronic absenteeism, all that contributes to, kids learning more in our schools. And really it is a team effort of not only the principals, all the teachers, guidance to clerical making the calls, the home liaisons. It really is a team approach. And, this year it's a different challenge. We're in a different model, although we were, I guess, received a little bit of crash training in the model that we started out the school year this year with last year. But we're just trying to get better. And as we transition in less than 2 weeks to hybrid, to engage our kids, find out where they're at, and help them grow and achieve this year. And as Jeremy mentioned, whether it be the high school, McKay and central office, we're working with Carrie Purcell of Focus Schools, trying to develop SMARTY goals. And we've been meeting on that as central office, and I know the high school is working on that as McKay, and having someone from the outside push us has been helpful. And again, trying to be creating and looking at a lot of different criteria other than just kind of the standardized assessment scores too, is in the back of our minds as we look at how this year may unfold, really. And I guess, Gene, you used the term early about revolution. I think, what we have happening is really not only a transition, but a transformation that's happening across the schools, and some of it's been thrust on us by, the pandemic. But clearly there are tools that are available that we've been forced to implement a lot quicker than maybe we would have otherwise. And staff and our students, we're seeing what works and what doesn't work. So, it's a living learning process for the adults and the students as well. So we're all in this together. So having said that, Mr. Shalafo is going to talk about the budget for this year.
Thanks, Bob. Just to preface this a little bit, I remember having a conversation with Superintendent of how exciting the budget would be in my first year, and then we can all turn the clock back to last spring when we were looking at the Student Opportunity Act money at $4.8 million, and then we went through a period of time where everything was very uncertain. And then we went to 1/12 budgets and finally settled in on a level service budget, which is far better than the 5, 10, or 15% cuts that we were anticipating potentially over the course of the spring. So at a very high level, this is what we're presenting as the FY21 budget, the $77 million foundation budget. We have our $57 million for our Chapter 70. The school budget is what we're asking, or presenting tonight at $63,265,000, which is our Chapter 70 plus the transportation amount, and the local contributions of $19.6 million. I've got a few slides that will break those categories out a little bit, just to show some trends over the last several years. But as it is now, we are $901 over our net school spending responsibility.
Wow.
And looking, obviously, this is all based on our enrollment, which is always, a critical factor, and will continue to be a critical factor as we make our way through this pandemic. We saw about a 2% increase in the per pupil costs, going from 12.9 million to 13.2, and we did see a increase of 17 students in our enrollment, which accounted for an increase in our foundation budget. You can see that's been fairly steady as far as our enrollment over the last several years, and then we can see the increases in our per pupil costs. Looking at trends of our Chapter 70 and our net school spending, again, you can see where we are this year for our foundation budget at $77 million, and the Chapter 70 at $57.7 million. And again, this is roughly $4.8 million less than we were anticipated under the original Student Opportunity Act conversation that we were having several months ago. And again, this just breaks out 3-year trends over the different category where the foundation budget, you see the slight increases over the last 3 years. City contributions at 19.3, again, that's fairly consistent. I'll actually break out some of the indirect costs on another slide, but you can see as this is trending across over the last 3 years with increases. And then the transportation is that last column, which has been kind of a bit of a fickle number, particularly last year, losing the last several months of school, and then trying to anticipate what transportation costs will be under 170 day school year this year. You can see it increased about $200,000. And looking at the indirect costs, you can see that they've been fairly stable over the last 3 years, and that includes, amongst other things, retirement, school choice, charter school, healthcare, and then the difference between that and the total net contributions for this year at $19.6 million from the city of Fitchburg.
Keep saying that, Craig. That's good.
I will. And again, just always important, we have made a considerable investment in our capital line, and you can see this trend from the, 2016, a little over $100,000, and we've maintained it this year at $800,000. We continue to work with our different contractors in bringing our schools up to where we want them to be and investing in projects that in some cases are well overdue. And we're hoping to get back into the cycle for some accelerated repairs under the MSBA for next year. We did not receive any applications for this current year. We will again reapply for different projects for next year. And just looking at our salaries, you can see on that bottom row where our salaries increased from $41.1 million in FY20 to $43.8 in FY21 for a difference of $2.7 million. That was an adjustment that we had to make. We're fortunate under a level service budget, we were not in a position to have to reduce force and make any considerable cuts, which we are very fortunate for, and we were able to cover all of our contractual obligations across the board. And again, just to bring things full circle back to, again, at a very high level, what the general budget is in the $63,265,000 budget for the school for FY21. And always keeping that net school spending line as our target and then some. And with that, I can open things up for questions. I know that we had supplied you with a more specific line item chart for all the lines that we have for all of our schools.
This is Jim, Craig. Just a question about transportation. The transportation costs for the charter school come out of our budget. They do not have to budget out of their budget. Is that correct? Okay.
Correct. Yeah.
Thank you.
In the parochials.
In the parochial schools as well. Correct. Thank you.
Craig, I want to say thank you for your efforts. Having a superintendent who was in that seat for quite a few years has had an impact since I've been the mayor, along with Calvin Brooks.
Yep.
He understands the importance of a conservative approach to finances, and he understands that's my driving force. So we all should be proud. I mean, we're funding the schools. I think we've met net school spending for every year that this administration's been around. So thank you. Thanks for your efforts.
Thank you, man.
I guess, Mr. Mayor, just to build on that, we've, in every community, the school department and City Hall doesn't always get along. But I've been working with the mayor's office and a couple city auditors now for 12 years, and I'll say the philosophy has been consistent, and the lines of communication have been open through, I guess now probably a couple different cycles, so to speak. And we've always been able to work together, and we continue to work together. So thank you and Calvin and the council for their support when we come before the council.
We've done this also by, and again, a tribute to you, Pete. Our capital needs has been a significant improvement in our buildings, and so we've done that as well as making sure the budget is where it should be. So again, credit to all you folks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Could I just ask so the enrollment, so we have a gain of 17 students overall. I mean, that's really great news, because I think there was a time there where I was afraid we were going to go off a cliff with enrollment, right? Like people were fearful that there might be switching out of districts, and kindergarten numbers were low this year, right? So, so where did we make up the numbers?
So this is, again, this budget is based on last year's October 1st numbers. Yep.
So this could be impacted then with some of the enrollment changes that we see this year.
Yes, and I know that there's been a lot of discussion at the superintendent level about the certified October 1st number that goes in and how that will be reflected in the FY22 budget.
Yeah, okay.
It's not necessarily, the perfect representation of the pandemic that would reflect the amount of students that we would necessarily have in school. So we're looking for some additional conversations, I guess you could say, over the next several months to see how they will actually fund the foundation budget for FY22.
Okay.
Yeah, and across the state, as Craig just mentioned, many districts, rural, urban, suburban, have experienced an enrollment decrease, particularly at the kindergarten level. It's kind of like, the freshman year of college. Many parents made the decision to take a gap year. Kindergarten is not mandated, so many parents elected to keep their children at home. So in total, the number's not final. I think we're just a little bit below 200 students less if it were,
Okay.
Final, from last October to this. Again, that's a preliminary number. As soon as we have the final certified number, we'll share that out. And, again, in January, we're really 3 months away from really starting next year's budget, when the governor is required by the third Wednesday of the month to just, put forth his budget. So there's going to be probably a lot of lobbying by the School Committee Association to the state legislature to, I don't want to say hold harmless perhaps, but recognize that this past year is an anomaly in terms of enrollment across the state. What will happen, I don't know. As Mr. Shalafo mentioned, we started this calendar year with the promise of the potential of the Student Opportunity Act, although the funding was never identified when the law was passed. It's still receiving discussion, but given where the state is economically, there's a lot of uncertainty how or when or if that will be funded. So it's too early to say, what next year looks like. Who knows what will happen at the federal level, what, if any, stimulus there will be. As I've seen from 12 years, the pendulum can swing from one direction to the other very quickly. So we'll see. We have this year, and with your support tonight, we'll be able to, continue this year's spending and formally. So. So, unless there are any other further questions of Mr. Shalfo or Craig, if you have any other thing you want to elaborate on, or
We just have 2 action items.
okay.
Yep.
One is to officially accept the donation from AIS of Leominster and the United Way of North Central Mass for the over 8,000 masks that were just recently donated with an estimated value of $26,950. And we have one grant to be accepted for $60,000, and that is for supporting behavioral, mental, and health and wellness across the district.
Okay, so it's action item time, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Let's start with action item 21-10. Accept the minutes of the school committee meeting held on October 5th, 2020.
Make a motion to accept the
Motion made,
Second.
seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? It is unanimous. Thank you. Approve the superintendent's recommendation to accept the following grant title, Supporting Students' Behavioral and Mental Health Wellness Grant for the amount of $60,000. 21-11.
Make a motion to accept it.
Motion
Second.
made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? It is unanimous. Thank you. Approve the 21-12. Approve the superintendent's recommendation for FY21 direct spend budget of $63,265,000.
Make a motion to accept the budget.
Motion made,
Second.
seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? It is unanimous. Action item 21-13, motion to accept the updated face mask policy.
That's a hold, as Mr. Horgan wasn't able to make it tonight.
Oh,
We didn't have a
okay. All
quorum
right, so-
last time, so that's on hold,
All right, so that will be tabled.
tabled.
Make a motion to table?
Motion made
Second.
to table 21-13.
Second?
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed is unanimous. Thank you. Action item 21-14, approve the superintendent's recommendation for a contract extension for Director of Pupil Personnel Services.
Make a motion to accept contract?
Motion made,
Second.
Second.
seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed is unanimous. Next, 21-15, accept face mask donation for the benefit of staff and students with an estimated value $26,950 from AIS United Way of North Central Mass and the business community.
So moved?
Motion
Second.
made, seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, it is unanimous. No need for executive session? Yes.
Before we
Mr. Walsh.
motion to adjourn, can I go back and make one communication, which I forgot to mention? I think it might be
ahead.
very appropriate.
Go ahead.
And this is dealing with a program being begun. It's called Food for Families. Mark Sweeney, who's the owner of Ultra Wash, he has a store in Fitchburg, one in Leominster, and one in Worcester.
Yeah.
And I put my glasses on so I can read my small print on my phone. And the plan is to have 3 distributions of 200 boxes of food at each of his locations. The first one will be Wednesday, October 28th, at his Fitchburg location on John Fitch Highway. And in order to be eligible to pick up a box of food, there are a couple ways. You can anybody who wants it has to register in advance. There'll be 200 boxes at each location. People can go to the website foodforfamilies600.com. So foodforfamilies600.com, no spaces. And you can register to pick up at any one of the 3 locations that is most convenient for you. If people have questions, they can call this number, 978-580-6474. Just so you know, Mark's goal is to raise $30,000 to provide these 600 boxes of food. He has generously donated $10,000 of his own money, and when I spoke to him last week, they were up to $23,000 in donations to provide the food for families in need of nutrition materials. So just wanted to make that a note. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion
Second.
made, seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Thank you all.
Thank you.